will do a little bit of introduction. So,
yeah,
yes.
Thanks, Bo. Thanks so much, and welcome everybody. This afternoon we have a full program ahead of us of interesting contributions from EDTU members. We have about 140 registrations for this afternoon, and normally about half will attend. So I guess that the count will go up to about 70 participants. I hope more, of course, but we'll see. This is actually the second staff support event. The former event was organized face-to-face at the Dutch Open University. That was on the 20th and 21st of November last year, where we, as a dedicated topic of staff support, covered issues like marketing and communication strategies, organizing digital examinations, GDPR, all of these kind of topics important for staff support. And today we are specifically focusing on the COVID crisis, the Corona crisis. So the contributions are all linked to that. Actually, this is more or less replacing or an extra event that we organize, as we normally would have had next month the meeting in Cyprus, hosted by the Open University of Cyprus. You'll understand, also considering this topic, that we needed to postpone that to 2021. But one of our colleagues there, host Gerardo, will contribute this afternoon as well. So let us see what the program looks like for now. We have the next slide here. So these are all the contributions for this afternoon. Full program, as I said, up till 3:30. We're going to talk about digital examinations during the COVID crisis by Chris Kuipers of the Open University of the Netherlands, followed by managing online tutorials by Zoe Gibson from the Open University UK, and then followed by providing remote workplace services in emergency situations by the WOC in Catalonia. Then by the UK, again, a contribution on delivering assessment and COVID-19, followed then by Erato, our coming host of our next face-to-face event on this for this group on communication strategies in relation to COVID-19 or during COVID-19. And we will finish with a contribution by UNED on inclusion, no one left behind, by José Luis Asnarto Melado. That will close the session. And as you know, probably those who were at our event at the Dutch Open University, there is a community of this group. So you can also discuss after this session up to the next event in Cyprus. There is a Yammer community for which I'm quite sure Bo will share with you contact details or the link later on, to keep us as staff support colleagues of Open Universities together. What else is there? So this is for the program. Let's start then with a contribution from the Open University of the Netherlands, Chris Kuipers. I just wanted to say that we have, for every presentation, there are a few minutes afterwards to have some questions posed to the expert. You can do that in the chat, and also you can ask for voice, I believe, Bo, that you can also ask for the microphone if you have a more complex explanation to do. But we will try to follow your questions in the chat and bring them forward at the end of each of the presentations. Chris, please, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, George, and welcome, Chris. I know you are going to present together with Jenny, so I would like to welcome Jenny as well. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
I know you would like to share your screen. So Chris, feel free to share your screen if you're okay with that.
Yes, I'm sharing now. Maybe it'll take a while. Yeah,
I think it's working. Yeah.
Okay.
I will put off my microphone because I hear an echo. So feel free. The floor is yours. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Bo and George. Thanks for organizing this second event. It's not what we expected, of course, but still it's better than nothing. And it's nice I would like to say it's nice seeing you all, but I don't see you at this moment, but nice having you all here. Ginny and I will do the first presentation. This is about digital examinations, and actually the topics are just from the title. So we will go in more detail on the digital examinations that we normally do. And of course, we will go into the situation of COVID-19. And especially we would like to tell you about the way we approach this with the support staff in our university. And we'll look a bit into the future, what our next plans are. Now, to set the expectations, this is not about a technical story or an IT story about the digital examinations. It's more about the approach we had. Also, it's not the story that we are telling. We found the solution. This is how to do it. And it's not a story about vast numbers, of course, because the Dutch Open University is not that big. Small country, together with a part of Belgium. It's still small. But it's always nice to share experiences, and we would especially like to have the exchange of experience on digital examinations, because in our university, distance learning was no problem in itself during COVID, because well, almost all the learning is online and at distance. But the examinations, well, we had to do some work for that. So I will hand over to Jenny now to start with our types of exams. Jenny.
Yes, thank you. I have a bit of a cold, so I'm glad this meeting is online. Otherwise, I would have had to cancel my trip to Cyprus, and that would have been really a pity. I'll start off. Probably, as most of you, we have different, a couple of types of regular exams, which are online assignments through the regular learning environment. We have oral exams, written exams, which are actually pen and paper writing in our study centers in the Netherlands. And we provide computer-based individual exams, which are also located in our study centers, and computer-based group exams. The last group would be the easiest way to providing online exams for a big group of people, but it's also the type of exam that is used least in the Open University in the Netherlands. Because the environment in which it's provided is not very user-friendly for text editing and also for correcting and scoring the exams. So we had some experience with this type of exam, but not a lot. Well, COVID came, and we were told we have to go online with all our types of exams. Every type of exam or every course had to be able to put a given exam from home. Well, with assignments and oral exams, it was pretty much an easy step. Assignments can be an online assignment. You can turn it in online. It can be scored online. Not really an issue. Oral exams, usually face-to-face in a study center, but with online recording tools, also possible. But what about the other three? Usually only in our study centers, and now we had to provide them from home. That was a big issue. Oh, you're going too fast. Okay. A little bit. Chris and I got the assignment. Please coordinate this for the whole Open University. So we were really eager to start, and so we did. And every teacher got the choice. Okay, you have to provide an online alternative for your exam. Which option do you want? Turn it into an online assignment, turn it into an oral exam, or turn it into a computer-based group exam. The version that we didn't use a lot in our regular types of exams. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. We were already working with question mark, but the on-premise version. So the first step was move everything to the cloud. It was a project that was already ongoing in the Open University, but not very fast. And now we had to speed it up a lot. The second one was proctoring, e-proctoring, which we had no experience with at all. So that was, well, the biggest challenge. We had just a couple of weeks to find an e-proctoring tool, to analyze it, implement it, test it, and well, put it into production, all well, pretty much in the same time. So first we had to do the inventory with all the teachers. Which type of online alternative exam do you want? And all the teachers that choose the computer grouped exam were pretty much handed over to the coordination of Chris and I to get it done. This required a lot of handwork. Every exam type, well, every course is registered in our system with a specific exam type. Every course had to be changed in our system manually. This was not something that we could do with, well, some kind of IT solution, so it was all handwork. And then we had to change the way that students could sign up for this exam, because we already gave them the choice for which study center they would want to go to do their exam. But, well, this was a new location, the home location. How would we be able to sign them up for the right location? And also trying to provide communication and tutorials to all the students, but also all the teachers, how to work with this, well, new type of exam. Not only how to turn in the questions so they could be put in question mark and were provided to the students, but also how does e-proctoring work. It was a lot of trial and error. After watching all the Proctor movies, we were really sorry for some of the students that were really, well, even in one case crying because, well, everything went wrong. They couldn't solve it. It was all new. We weren't able to help them at that time. But we also received, well, lots of comments of all the students that were really happy, yeah, that we could provide this solution.
Okay.
I think that's where you step in, Chris.
Yeah, that's where I step in. Thank you. All of a sudden, we had to do all these things that Ginny told you about, and even more. So in a couple of days, we realized it would not work with a normal structure that we have. You know, the hierarchy in the organization is, even though it's quite flat, it's still too much. So you're not flexible and fast enough to do this kinds of big projects. So then we said we had to make a temporary structure, which was more like a network. And in this network, we placed people from the hierarchy in several groups. And so Ginny and I were kind of in the middle and tried to coordinate all these groups. And it's a bit like a project, you know, then you also have this multidisciplinary, but in this case, it went much further. It was actually replacing the normal structure. And it was, in a way, less formal. We didn't really form the groups, they formed themselves. We just had to coordinate it. So it's quite a different way of work. And actually, my manager every now and then said, I have no idea what's going on. And I think, well, it's no problem. We know. So, of course, oh, this is not going the right way. And we're back. So of course, these groups also had interaction between each other. It's not like everything went through us. Otherwise, we would have made a new hierarchy. But it was a totally different way of working together. Probably you recognize it. I think we're not the only one who have this experience. But just to name some characteristics of it, we found that the communication was really open. Everybody was communicating with each other. We didn't have to have a workshop on how to communicate openly with each other. We just did it. And of course, that's because of the pressure. And everybody understands that you have a big task to do, and everybody accepts that you make failures or others make failures. So it's a really open way of communicating. Another interesting point is that everybody had to get their hands dirty, had to fill in Excel sheets, had to try new things, and it was really learning by doing. And I'll give you one example from the proctors. You know, normally they went to the study centers and they were in this classroom and attending to it that everything went according to how we think is appropriate. But now they had to look at these recordings in an IT system, and they had never done that, didn't know how it worked. So we said, there's no time to give you a proper tutorial and education in it. So we just had these like 30 people in an online meeting, and we just went through the system in like 20 minutes, told them a little bit about it, and then we said, well, if you click on this, and then you click on that, and then you're on your own. You have to find it out by yourself. On the other hand, what we did is we had these stand-ups, like, online, of course, we called it meetups. And every day, at the end of the day, we got together with these 30 people and we just exchanged experience. And that worked quite good. After a while, they knew much more than we did. And they gave tips to each other. Oh, you should do it like this. And it's really nice way of getting the people who have to do the work learning and in the end be responsible and feel responsible. Now this all seems quite how do I call it, social. It's open communication, working together, but on the same time we had this what we called a military approach. We had to be very strict, using certain formats. You know, in our university, when we have a new format, everybody's saying, the format is too strict. I want something else in it. But there was no time for it. We just said, you have to use this. And also deadlines. You have to give us the information to other people before that and that day. So it was a really nice combination, this whole networking way of working with kind of strict structure and kind of working together. Now, I will not go into much detail about how we did the communication with the students, but to give you some impression, we have this dashboard for students. And normally, if you do an exam, you have to go into like three or four tiles. You have to go into the learning environment tile. You have to go into the tile where you can find the information about your exams. You have to go to the tile where you do the self-enrollment. You have to go somewhere to do the actual exam. And we just put that together all in one tile, just for the students who needed this. Only they could see it. And they found all the information and tutorials and self-enrollment, and also things like the privacy statement. They could all find it in one place. And that really helped. Okay. Now to look a bit forward, as Ginny mentioned already, we had this like 4-year plan to get to a certain level with our digital examinations. And all of a sudden we were there in a couple of weeks. Well, not really, of course, because you have to do a lot of handwork. The quality is maybe not what you want all the time. So what we expect is we learned a lot from it, and of course we will fall back after a while, but still we learned a lot, so we will be ahead on schedule. But now we have to still do a lot of things to really make it work, not only in this crisis situation, but always, and to really can lean on it. What we also did is ask the students. So we asked them before COVID, every now and then, how do you think about digital examinations? But now they actually had done it. So we asked them again, and quite a big percentage, like 43, said, well, in the future, without COVID, even without COVID, we would like to do it from home. Others said, well, it's too tricky. I don't have the right room to do it. I don't have the right IT equipment to do it. So I want to go to a study center. And a small part said, either is good. So that led to us to the idea that we should have like a hybrid situation, especially with the computer-based individual exams, because what we did now was computer-based group exams, meaning that at a certain point in time, everybody was doing the same exam on their time, but we also have these computer-based individual exams, that meaning that you can choose as a student the time slot when you want to do this assessment, and you get a random set of questions at that time. So we would like to go instead of doing this computer-based group exams from home, we would like to go to a situation where students can choose between doing this exam in a study center or doing it from home. Actually, we're almost that far that we can implement that. The biggest thing now is the fraud alert. It's still, of course, recognizing fraud is easier in a physical situation than from home. And we learned a lot from that the last couple of months. And we're thinking we're going to be better and better at it, but it's harder to do it when an exam is taken from home. So there's a lot of discussion about this right now. But apart from that, this will be our next step. So to wrap up, sometimes you look back and think, why don't we always work like this? And especially with this new way of networking together in the organization. I don't know about your experience, Jenny, but I think we would like to do it always like this. And every now and then you feel already that you're falling back to the old structures. And when you do that, things are getting slower.
Old habits of taking a lot of time and a lot of consulting everybody. Yeah.
So, but we also see that, especially in the IT environment, we're going to make a lot of changes. Apart from COVID, we're planning to do a lot of changes, and now we're thinking about approaching them in the same way we did this the COVID period. So maybe I forgot something, Jenny, or otherwise there is room for questions and suggestions.
Yeah, thanks, Chris and Jenny, for sharing this experience with the group here. I think it's really very much on topic of what the others are experiencing and facing the same challenges, I guess. Any questions from the participants?
See, Francisco wrote a nice text. I would not discard oral exams so quickly. Oral exams online could be a very useful tool today. Combining with others could be a good option. For example, they can help with identification of students. It is an easy, cheap procedure, etc. Obviously, it depends on the size of the groups and the number of teachers, but it's fast and frugal procedure.
Yes, maybe I gave the wrong impression. It's in the last sheet. It's not that we're going to this combination of exams at home and in the study center, but in like the computer-based individual exams, it's just one of the options we are thinking of next. We don't have that option yet, but we will still remain on doing the oral exams.
Thank you very much for your explanation. Do there others have a question or a remark? Please feel free to use the chat if you like. And otherwise, we can always send them an email, of course, to Chris and Ginny. They put their email addresses here on the last slide.
Yeah, and it was not only us that would like to work like this more often. We also heard some teachers that said, this online alternative, I would like to try this one as a structural way of examining for my course. So, yeah.
There's one more question there. Would a hybrid system be same online format, but let's see. But
yeah, if it's up to Chris and me, we in the near future we will give the students a choice for every exam. Do you want to do it in one of our study centers or do you want it from home?
Yeah, and there will be exactly the same exam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there more questions?
I see some people writing.
Yeah, I see some people typing. No, don't be afraid to send a question. What was marking process like?
What's meant by marking exactly in this case?
You mean correcting the exams?
Yeah, grading them, I think. Correcting them.
Yeah. Well, Question Mark has a scoring tool, which is not very user-friendly, but it does work in the end. If you, get a little bit of the feeling. But that's something that if we go to the near future and provide more digital exams, user-friendly experience is one of the things that we really want to take into account.
So they were not all automated, but
no, only the multiple choice questions were automated. Yeah, open questions was all handwork. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was before COVID, the same situation as during COVID.
Okay. Thanks so much, Chris and Ginny. We have to go to the next speaker. Others can still post them by mail to you otherwise. So thanks again. We go now to Zoe Gibson from the Open University, talking about the managing online tutorials at scale at the Open University. So, Zoe, I see you there. Welcome.
Oh, before we start, I see a large question mark in the chat popping up. If you want, we can answer that. Chris and Jenny, please feel free to answer this via chat, and otherwise we can send them an email or you send me an email, what you like.
Yeah.
Okay, please feel free to go ahead, Zoe.
Okay, hello. So I am Zoe Gibson. I'm the Senior Product Development Manager for Online Rooms at the Open University in the UK. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we already operate at scale. So the context of the Open University. I'll talk a little bit about what that means in terms of online learning and our model. And how we've had to respond to an increasing demand since the lockdown happened in mid-March. I'm then going to talk a little bit about some of the tips that I've picked up along the way before COVID and during COVID in supporting our staff to manage the different types of events they're running, be it a large one or a smaller, more interactive session. And then I'll summarise some of the points for you and open it up to questions. So first of all, the OU context and scale. So the Open University was established in 1969. We had our birthday, our 50th birthday last year. Since then, we have taught over 2 million students worldwide. We consistently top over 90% for student satisfaction in the National Student Survey. So we must be getting something right along the way. The Open University's mission is we believe that education should be open to anyone, anytime and any place. And hopefully you'll see in a bit of that as I talk through our operating model. So the Open University is the largest university in the UK. We have around 175,000 formal students. Of those, 31% are under the age of 25. 3 in 4 of them are already studying, are working and studying at the same time. So they've already got very busy lives and they're juggling a lot of other things. And 1 in 8 of them, so that's around 27,000 students, have some form of disability. So what is the OU model? The OU model is we have our structured learning content. We also have a percentage of open access where we provide plenty of courses available free to access for anyone. We aim to produce high quality learning materials, and we provide various kinds of support from one-to-one to which is tutor-led, and we have social networking where we have forums, we have wikis and other types of activities available to provide that sense of community for our student communities. We provide interactivity in all of our courses, and we aim to provide feedback in those as well. Along the way, there's assessment. That assessment may be formative or it could be summative. And we do provide residential schools and day schools along the way. I'll talk a little bit about that because that's one of the areas that obviously where I come in, where we've had to move things from face-to-face day schools into an online environment. So online learning at the Open University, what does that mean? Let me go back one. So the students, they're studying part-time. We do have some students that do study full-time, but most of them will be studying part-time. And they could be jumping onto a train to commute. Okay, that might be a little bit less frequent now, but they're working. We do have offender learners, so there'll be some students who are in prisons. And we have some people that are posted away from home. They may be at an army base, in a submarine. So we have all varying environments where people may be studying. Our modules run for either 6 or 9 months, depending on how many credits they're studying. And on average, they will be doing 16 to 20 hours of study a week. All students are given a tutor group, and a tutor will have a group of up to about 20 students. Our teaching material is all structured around module websites. And then we link out to our real-time collaboration tool, and that's the bit that I own and manage. And our choice of tool is Adobe Connect. We have weekly study planners that our students can follow with links to the varying aspects of their learning that they need. We do provide face-to-face and online tutorials, but it's fair to say that this is all a setup that we have pre-COVID. We were already operating at scale, so a lot of this is stuff that we do as part of our daily offering. But currently, face-to-face has been cancelled to the end of this year. So that means that the face-to-face has been moved online, and that's where we see an uptake in our use of online rooms. So most things are online, but there is an element of physical materials as well, such as books. So it isn't all necessarily online, but the majority are. So what I really wanted to talk about is the online tutorials at scale. So we've been using Adobe Connect since 2016. We integrated Adobe Connect with the OU's virtual learning environment, that's Moodle. We have over 4,500 OU staff to train. That's remote users, so that is all of our tutors across the country. But now we also have central academic staff who are also working at home, so they're now remote as well. They're not even on campus for the majority, sitting in our base. On average, we can have up to 3,500 users at any time using Adobe Connect. And during our peak period, that goes up to 5,500. We usually have around 40,000 events scheduled a year. And we have already over 43,000 recordings with way over 1 million views. We have a wide range of learning events. So I've already said we have some tutor group events. So that could be the 1 tutor to 20 students. We also have some module-wide events, and that can be 350 plus. So for us, it's important to be able to give our staff the tools they need to adapt from a small event to a much larger event. Okay, so it's all about working at scale. We have to provide a system that is seamless and consistent. We're already operating at scale. The seamless entry to Adobe Connect means that we've integrated it with our VLE, as I've said. So we have single sign-on. They don't need to worry. They just have to access their module websites and they get straight into their rooms as and when required. We have a centralized admin team. We already have centralized timetabling that's loaded into the booking system. And then we have logistics behind the scenes that get people from their timetabling to the right rooms and the right groups at the right time. So to ensure that we provide a good setup for our online tutorials, not only do we provide a centralized system for that, we have training resources which are set up to support over 4,500 tutors and our academic staff. So we were already set up with a skill set pre-COVID. And with this, when the lockdown came, what we found is that a lot of our tutors were working with other universities already who had to move their learning online. They were able to apply the knowledge they learned at the Open University to their other institutions and support online learning in their various professional settings. So that's fine, that's pre-COVID, but then of course when lockdown came, we already had an idea of what we were doing in terms of providing things at scale, but then we had to respond to an increasing demand. So I'll talk a bit about what that meant for us. So there were many challenges facing online learning anyway before lockdown, but when lockdown came, these were exacerbated. So some of the challenges there, you have remote learners. Remote learners have a variety of requirements. You'll find today those requirements are your technical abilities. So how good are you at using the tools you've been given anyway? Then you have the different types of devices from, your browsers to your operating systems and your own internet connection. There's so many variables there already. It's quite complex to support everybody and find an even system that works for everybody. So, of course, in amongst all of that, you've got responsibilities. Before this, I said that our students were part-time. They were usually working anyway. Now we had not only our students who were faced with working at home, they're looking after their children, being carers. Our staff were the same now. So we had added complexities in there, having to manage that and support everybody who had to juggle all of these commitments. And then if you add in the accessibility requirements, they can be anything from anxiety to dyslexia to hard of hearing or visual impairment. So being able to support everybody and provide inclusive online tutorials was heightened during this time. And then when you think about some of the other things that may be in there, so for example, the motivation, what are people's motivations? I'll talk a little bit more about the purpose of rooms later in some of the tips that I've picked up, but understanding the motivations and being able to really engage people. What are their expectations of the events that you're going to hold? Are they expecting it to be a one-to-many, a more information-giving session, or are they expecting it to be more hands-on and they've actually got to do something when they turn up? And then once you've got them in the room, it's how you keep them engaged. So there's lots of tools there, lots of things that we have to train our staff on. And I'm sure you appreciate that there's a cognitive overload when you think about that in online terms. So, of course, that coupled with everybody wants to be online and they just want to jump on and they just want their technology to work. So what did we have? We had a number of rooms set up for our online tutorials. We had a number of rooms set up for a few staff events. So we had to respond very quickly. We had to respond to increased capacity for some of our tutorials. No longer were the face-to-face events happening. But we also had requests for more rooms to be added. We had more staff wanting rooms for their teaching and learning events that they had coming up. We had to train more staff who had never used Adobe Connect before. And we had to support staff in adapting their presentations or their delivery style for a face-to-face event into something that was better for an online audience. We've had to adapt our guest access guidance. So our guest access guidance was aimed at a much smaller cohort, and now we had to look at, well, actually, if we want to make this more flexible and open to people, we have to think about giving more support here to our staff. And what does that mean? So, for example, just simple things like, make sure you ask them to type in their full name so you know who's coming. That's kind of a safeguarding thing. So, best practice is you give your full name so that the host knows who's coming in and it can accept you in if they are expecting you into the room. We have to ensure that we have the capacity. So we do a lot of modelling based on our booked events and monitoring that and looking at who actually attends. And you get to know the percentage of how many are booked against how many will actually actively attend those sessions. So we're faced with a situation where there's lots of events that may not be in the booking system. So we were doing a lot of prediction models and trying to make sure that we reach capacity. And we can do that. So some of that work we will continue to do into the new academic year, looking at the booking numbers and looking at what's coming up and ensuring that we can meet capacity. What we don't want to do is stop people from doing all the good stuff they want to do. So it's our job to ensure we can meet the capacity there. And the final one I thought I'd put in there because we can't fix everyone's internet connection. Some of the things we get, it is genuinely user connection error. And as frustrating as that is for some people, we can't fix that. So there's a little bit of education around, what we can do and what realistically we can't do and what we can manage. So what did we see? So we did see an increase in our tutorials. So what this is showing you is that over the period, we had an increase in numbers. Now, some of the text seems to have dropped off, but that's fine. So the green line, the bottom line that flat lines out at April, that's actually our face-to-face for this year. And the one that sort of is the next lowest is the sort of the blue colour. They're both showing you the face-to-face events. So we had face-to-face was always lower than our online events anyway, but you can see that once we hit lockdown, our face-to-face basically flatlined and we dropped everything. So moving on to the two top peak graphs there, you have the red and the purple. The purple one is the highest one all the way along. The red is sitting just below. So really what we're showing there is that we already had an increase in our online tutorials. That was the trend. More online was being offered and more online was being taken up by our students. And you can see that actually the trend didn't really change. It just increased slightly. And that goes with our delivery model anyway. We usually see a lower activity during the summer months. And then our peaks are from January through to May. That's when we have new starts and exams and assessment. And we see a really big peak around November and November, and that's where we have our highest peak times. So for our online tutorials, overall, as you saw, there wasn't a huge increase in demand for our scheduled tutorials. And we're okay. We're sitting pretty because we're already operating at scale, with the majority of our tutorials being online. So then we move to where we offer other tutorials and other rooms, outside of our online tutorials. And those are where we do student-facing ones and we do staff-facing. So interestingly, the student-facing ones, what we see is with those is that, again, they're the green lines, the green dotted and the solid green line. Apologies if this isn't a very clear graph. So what we see here is that we had an increase in student activity with that solid green line and a lot more student-facing activity going up. I didn't have time to update this graph, but interestingly, what that's looking like is we've got a huge peak that's really going up now. As we approach our peak period, there's more student online events going on. Interestingly, what we see is that during lockdown, the red graphs, so the red dotted line are our staff online rooms. So we had lots of staff briefings, maybe some research events, online conferences, and there was a little bit of that going on with the red line. That was last year. This year, since lockdown, we have that red solid line. You'll see the dramatic increase. And that's where I put a lot of work in. There was a lot of work to support our academic staff in getting online so that they could continue to do those teaching and learning events. They needed rooms so they could do lots of things like and continue with their research, online conferences, and engage with students in different ways. So you'll see we had a significant increase with our online rooms outside of our scheduled events. Contacts with students were increasing, and what we saw that there's our staff online rooms, they tripled. So what are the things we've learned along the way and I can offer to you? So some tips, and these are really tips for managing the different types of events. So the first thing I often say to people is when they come to me and say, I need to move something from face-to-face to online, is I step it back and we look beyond what we do with our tutorials and we think about the things that you may want to do. So of course you want to keep people connected. That's obvious. You want to reach a diverse audience that are working remotely and on various devices. So then you need to think through the planning. Some of these things are similar to your face-to-face meeting. So you have to think about who is going to be hosting the room and who do you want in the room? How many participants do you want? That's your starting point because you have to think, is this a small event or a larger event? The who. So then we think, why? Why do you need an online room? Are there other ways that you could do it? Is it the real-time bit that you need? Then when is your session going to be held? Think about a convenient time for the audience that you're delivering this to and where. So of course you need a room, you need a URL, it needs to be accessible. Obviously I've already said for our tutorials, we'd make that seamless. So we integrate it with the VLE. And we try to make that seamless for everyone else when they're wanting the guest access. Of course, they can't access the VLE, but we can give our OU hosts the ability to use guest links so that they can invite people in and manage it that way. So what are the types of activities you want to do in your room? You know, do you just want to do a straightforward video conference? Or are you wanting to do something a little bit more detailed? Are you wanting to do multiple chat, polls, interact on a whiteboard, that type of thing? And then we move on to, once we've established that and stepped through those things, we talk about that, okay, so how are we going to achieve this? So delivering online, and I've said here online tutorials because this is what I do deliver a lot for, but it really extends to any online event. There are some things that, you know, are pretty obvious throughout your session. So you do need good audio. We do still recommend that you have a headset. And we do say that you need good quality webcam and you need to pace your session. So make sure that everybody can keep up. Sometimes that means pausing and allowing for some quiet time so that people can think and react to what you've put in there. The thing to really think about is learning and teaching is more than a video conference. So it's really understanding what you're wanting to do in your session and being able to control the participation. So think about whether you want to limit the webcam and the draw and planning your session through. If you need to, provide your materials beforehand. That can help people who need more time to think it through or have accessibility issues that they need to work through and you want to support them with. Speaking slowly and clearly and reminding participants that they can use the text chat at all times. And if you're doing a larger event, think about team teaching. So we also provide student rooms. Our student rooms, they go beyond host-led events. We can set rooms up so students can interact independently and do their own communication, their own learning, and practice their presentation styles. That's something unique that we offer at the Open University. We add rooms to a lot of our module websites for students to have that, build that community themselves. So some of the extended use cases that we've done through lockdown, we've enabled more trainers, we've done workshops with over 200 plus, exam monitoring sessions we've done, poster competitions, quizzes, virtual pub quizzes with students, conferences with over 400 participants, and many research projects. So in summary, continuing objectives for the OU, I won't read all of those out, but we continue to create rich digital learning experience for our students. And we want to allow supported learning journey with collaborative communities of students and academics. So for me, for online tutorials, there are 3 key things here. I want to ensure that users have the right technical setup. I want to make sure that we have training available for everyone because that's key. And I want to give people and empower people to be able to adapt their event for any session, however many people they have in the room. And that really brings me to the end of my presentation and over to you to ask some questions.
Thanks, Zoe. Very interesting presentation on the experience of the OUK. I'm just checking in the meantime if there are immediate questions here. Do you record online sessions?
Sorry, do we record?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so the way it works at the Open University, we tend to, for our tutorials, everything is bookable. And in that bookable framework, we will advertise the ones that are recorded and the ones that are not recorded. We try to give an offering of all of our events. So for example, if we have a tutorial on a module and we give the students a choice of 5 to attend, at least one of those 5 will be recorded so that nobody loses out. But we also offer up to opportunities where people don't want something recorded to attend one that isn't recorded.
Thanks. Any other immediate questions? I see people typing at the moment.
Thank you very much, Rui, for this interesting presentation as well. It's nice to see the experience from the EU-UK as well. Thanks for recording sessions. If you may have any more questions for Zoe, please send them. Please send her an email. Her email is now in here in screen. Feel free to send her an email or to us, and we will forward it, and we'll make sure your question will be answered. All right. Thank you very much, Zoe.
Okay.
Thank you for being here. Then we will move on to our next presentation, which is from Eva. Let me see if I have your presentation as well. All right, I see it's in here. Oh, hello, Klaus Dieter. It's nice seeing you in here. Your presentation will be right here after this presentation.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Eva, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen now. Just a second, please. So, okay. So let's go. Hello, everyone. My name is Eva, and I work at the IT department of the Universitat Oberta de Catalunya, the UOC, which is based in Barcelona, Spain. And today I'm very happy because we are speaking about a lot of interesting things, such as virtual exams, for example, and the digitalization of really important processes at our universities. And at my university, at the UOC, in this time of lockdown, we have also done really interesting projects, such as the whole digitalization of our assessment process, including virtual exams as well, and synchronous defenses of thesis, or even a couple of websites with resources for online lessons, one of them together with UNED, which is the other Spanish online university present at this webinar. But today, I want to address the issue of providing remote workplace services in emergency situations, because that means to provide what we need in order to do our job, making possible all these necessary projects we are speaking about today. So, okay, moreover, I also want to discuss with all of you how we can take advantage of this situation. So if it's interesting to understand teleworking as a new way of work, or it's not interesting at all, because that's also a possibility, of course. But if it is interesting, I think it would be a good idea to discuss after my presentation how we can promote the ubiquity of our work in our universities. Okay, so this is the agenda of my presentation. So first of all, I want to start discussing the difference between emergency remote working versus teleworking, because it is not the same thing. And after that, I will explain to you how we did remote working at our university before and during the crisis. I will explain as well the specific actions we did. I don't want to describe a specific technical details, so don't worry about it. But to provide you an overview of what kind of things we should take into account in order to do remote working possible. So I will describe our current situation too, but mainly in order to discuss our future as teleworkers or not. And I will bring you some recommendations from the experts in these topics. And I think it would be really interesting, as I said previously, if we can take advantage of our 5 minutes for questions, discussing the convenience to follow working remotely, partial or completely, or come back to a model of face-to-face work. Okay. In order to speak about the differences between teleworking and remote working in emergency situations, I want to make a parallelism with this article from EduCost. I'm sure you know it, that tell us how well-planned online learning experiences are meaningfully different from courses offered online in response to a crisis or disaster. As we well know, online learning should be planned, should be well-designed, and requires hard work of conceptualization and definition in order to get learning objectives. So, okay, in the same way, we can find how teleworking is defined by the International Labour Organization as a way of working that takes place away from central offices or production facilities, and it involves transforming and planning one's work accordingly and thinking in terms of working hours rather than office hours. And in the same way, and there's another concept that I find interesting by far, that is smart working and is really related with teleworking. And this concept of smart working involves 3 dimensions. First of all, ICTs. Second, physical spaces. And third, people. And when we speak about people, we are speaking, of course, about the culture of our organization. So, taking into account these definitions, it's clear that working from home in an emergency situation is not teleworking, because there is no planning involved, children are at home, appropriate equipment or connectivity may be lacking or even non-existent, and information systems could not be adapted to working from home, okay? So, taking into account these differences, let's see how we did telework at our university before the crisis. The first point was that teleworking was a partial and voluntary activity, and it just requires an agreement with one's manager. Most employees telework for about 20% of the week, more or less these were the numbers. And on the other hand, home equipment and connectivity were the responsibility of the staff, both for teachers and managers and the rest of workers of the university. But the institution provides some funding for this personal equipment, okay? And last but not least, the university also provides a secure environment for remote work using internal applications through VPN and virtual desktop. And on the other hand, our other systems or main systems actually are cloud-based and openly accessible on the internet with username and password, obviously. And then there was no problem to connect with them from home. So, I'm sorry. So we arrived on 13 March 2020, and when the emergency situation was declared in Spain. And here you have our president telling us the news. Schools were closed the day before, and everybody had to work from home if possible. And while some companies such as IKEA and ING were teleworking ready within 48 hours, at our university, everybody was working from home the very next day. Well, the very next day in our sense, because this day was Friday, and we could work from home on Monday. Okay, so how was remote working during the lockdown? Well, if you remember this guy on BBC, this video is previous to the COVID crisis, so, of course, but I'm pretty sure that everybody with family or other people at their home become in his situation, and it was pretty terrifying. And that also means a lot of work for every IT department of the world, I'm sure. And in our case, as I previously mentioned, our main systems are LMS with the open access via internet with the username and password. So that's no problem for that connection from home. Cloud applications, for example, the Suite for Education. And as you know, there is no problem at all to work from home with that kind of applications. But we have as well other internal applications, mainly for management staff, and we need to access them through virtual desktops or VPN, but we did not have enough license and servers. So what did we do in order to fix that situation? Well, obviously the first point was to provide more license and servers in order to solve concurrency problems, because of course it's not the same 20% of people teleworking than 100% of people working from home. And this was taken care of the weekend, as I said before. And on Monday, everybody could work with normally, okay? So, but more interesting, I think, is the issue that we accelerate our plans to move remote access to virtual desktop to the cloud. And this is really interesting because it made, in the first place, these applications more stable. So it's very strange for a cloud application to crash, and enable the possibility of adjusting license and servers and even prices, of course, with just a click. So as cloud applications work as a service, if you want more service, you pay more, and if you need less service, you pay less. And even more interested, you just need money to fix these situations, and you will not need people working on weekends anymore, for example. But teleworking not only involves connectivity and services, but also good equipment at homes. And in this sense, our reality was like that. So some people lack the appropriate technology or ergonomic equipment required to work from home. In our case, we had no specific budget for the sudden peak in demand for such equipment, not to mention the scanning storage, very few equipments in storage, but however, we had more than 1,000 unused equipment units in our offices because of the lockdown. So the university decided to equip workers' homes with the following options you can see here, from full computer setup, full equipment, to ergonomic chairs. So obviously ergonomic chairs were not provided by the IT department, but I think this is an interesting point, because if you want to ask this kind of situation, it's clear we need a strong collaboration between departments as IT, human resources, logistics, etc. Without collaboration, it is impossible to answer this kind of situations, okay? Okay. What about our current situation? So we can work from home, and this was true even when it came to carrying out important transformation at the university, such as moving the entire final assessment test process online. So we will carry on working from home until at least July 2021, mainly considering the dire situation facing Barcelona. But if we need to go to our buildings, we can ask for a workstation there, following security measures, of course, and we have rooms set up for face-to-face meetings, as you can see at the pictures. And what does the future hold? What about our future? So I think it's positive as well to look at other companies, as Google, for example, where they are also extending teleworking until July. And we expect Google will not be like this in July. So obviously, this is a joke, but the important thing here is we find an important increase in teleworking. Gartner says, for example, that experimentation in digital workplace technologies is accelerating in order to ensure employee productivity in the post-COVID shift to remote work, and the number of digital workplace technologies on the roadmap that are in pilot have almost doubled to 82% this year as compared to 44% in 2019. And what about other specific companies? Well, for example, on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg announced that in 10 years' time, half of Facebook workers will work from home. On Twitter, teleworking is now an option for all staff. Dell estimates that half of its workers will opt to telework when the crisis is over. Standard Life officially announced that most of its workers will work from home until 2021. And Amazon and Microsoft are teleworking until October for now. And on the other hand, it's clear that companies that telework have coped better with the crisis. Okay, so. But the question is, what about us? What about online universities? Because if we strongly believe in quality distance education and lifelong learning, is it not consistent to believe in the quality of our work, irrespective of where we do it from? Or could this be an opportunity for our online universities to move further online? And if this is so, we should ask ourselves important questions, as, for example, how can we design our teleworking model? Partial, complete, not at all. It's sure we should think on it in terms of smart working, which considers technology, spaces, and human issues, and that means we should transform our organizational culture too. Obviously, we should listen to the experts, and following experts, it's important to avoid setting strict schedules, avoid as well specific places and Also associating telework with a specific job or a specific kind of person. For example, a woman who wants to take care of their family, because conciliating should be important for everyone. And of course, we should take into account legal issues. In our case, the Spanish government is now drafting a new teleworking law, and it seems that employers will not be required to pay all the expenses derived from working from home. That's related to economic issues and the business model, because teleworking can be designed for good, taking into account the wellness of your organization in mind, or for bad, thinking just about reducing costs. But it's clear that it is important to figure out how to make our proposal economically viable, of course. Okay, so well, that's all by the moment. So I'm excited to hear you and to know what about your institutions and know more about your situation and what do you think about this topic of remote working. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Eva. Thanks so much. And nice, you're ending with a question to the audience. So let's see if we have some participants that can reply to Eva's request on what about you? Anyone? Or questions also. And the floor is also open for questions, of course. I see some people writing. Yeah, I can't see it yet, but you're expecting some questions now in the chat. The long questions, I guess.
Yes, thank you very much, Eva, for the presentation. I thought it was very interesting. It was also interesting to hear that you already know that you will be working from home until July.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Karen says something. Good to distinguish teleworking from emergency working. Some experienced teleworkers assume it's just the same. Expectations are then too high.
Yes, I agree. Expectations are too high or too low because it was a bad experience for a lot of people. And it's important to think, I think it's important to think about remote working as a smart working, because if not, it doesn't work for sure. Mm-hmm. That's another interesting question about social aspects. I see. So, I'm sorry. How about the social aspects of working from home? Does any of our universities organize special events? That's a really important point, because we were in a crisis situation, and social and psychological aspects were really important. And we organized a lot of team meetings, for example. The psychological service of the university works for that situation as well.
So I see also a nice question from Erato. How easy was it for you, Eva, to respect normal working hours while working from home? In their case, they saw a lot of people who were overwhelmed because everybody was expecting a response immediately.
Yes, that's another important point about the design of the teleworking model, because it's very important to fix time in order to do synchronous activities. Okay, so it's important not to fix time for the work, but it's important to fix a timetable or an agenda for these synchronous activities, because if not, it would be really, really complicated to manage and to conciliate with other aspects of your life. For example, synchronous activity is one of the key points of remote working. That's true. And here it's only a particular experience. The issue is how to transform our universities in real teleworking. Obviously, this is the point. This is the point. After the summer, over a new academic year, I'm trying to make sense of what is ahead. We found that working remote can be very efficient and many benefits. The social energy of sitting in front of a real life human person, not just sight and sound, is missing. I'm trying to make sense how much social we need and how we do this. Well, this, as I said previously, this social aspect of the remote working is a question. So there is no specific answers for that by this time, but we'll see, because unfortunately I didn't read many literature about this topic. So we'll see.
Right. Thank you very much, Eva.
You're welcome.
Is there still a question for Eva? Please write so in the chat. No, otherwise, of course, you can send her an email or send an email to me and we will forward it to her. I see nobody is typing anymore. So, yes, Eva, I will let you know if a new question will pop up in my inbox. So, thank you very much for being here and presenting your work case here. It's very interesting to hear. And then we move on to the next presenter. Klaus Dieter, are you here? I just saw you, so I know you will be here. I will make sure your presentation is on the screen. Klaus Dieter, are you here? You can turn on your microphone and camera.
Now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, and sorry, also okay,
yeah.
Here we are.
Perfect.
And
I can see you
sharing. Oh no, you can see the perfect. Great. So I'll hang on. When I put this presentation together, and I just see it didn't quite work. I looked at that picture. This is part of our template that we use at the Open University, and I just realized how strange this now looks, and you know, in just preparing mentally for what I was going to do, I sort of scribbled and put some face masks on these two students, and also talked about 2 meters, which of course they're not keeping. So this is a really a very old-fashioned picture, and we'll have to see really what's going to happen in the future. On Wednesday, the 18th of March in 2020, I walked over from one section of the campus, it's right at the top somewhere there, all the way over to the bottom left where there are some buildings, to join some colleagues from our assessment unit at the Open University. And we were sitting together and were thinking about, first of all, there were exams scheduled for a week later, and we needed to move them online. We needed to turn them into remote exams. And also we had to think about, okay, what would happen if many students can't upload or do their exams or their end of module assessment. What would happen if we as an institution don't have the capacity to process all the assignments that are coming our way? So we started working on existing policy, and we needed to find a way, how can we award a final result for the students? And those were the questions that we discussed. And a week later, or actually less than a week later, I switched off my I switched off my light and closed the door to my office, and I haven't been in the office since. So before I go into the details, hang on. My apologies. Okay. I may have missed a no. Sorry, some details about the Open University, and at the bottom under the picture, you see we have 100,000 directly registered students, about 50,000 students in partner institution where we validate the results. I'm not talking about them today. And in 2018-19, we had 8,000, just 8,500 honors degrees. Now, when we talk about assessment at the Open University, we talk about tutor-marked assignments. Those are the ones that people do all through the year. We have exams. About a third of our modules still have exams. The vast majority have either end of module assessment or end of module tutor-marked assignments. There's a difference that isn't really important for this presentation, but that's about 2/3 of the modules. And we have some compulsory events. Normally, tutorials are voluntary, but sometimes we need them if a regulator requires them, or if we know, for example, residential schools in languages where I come from originally, where it's just important for the qualification to have had that experience. We have some key players in assessment at any time. And I'm just going to quickly run through them. It's important just to see the complexity when we talk about assessment. So they're the academics, of course, and they design the strategy, they write assignments, they mark, and they recommend results. Then we have the unit assessment, credit, and qualifications, ACQ. They are part of academic services. They oversee policy, assessment policy and standards, and they process all the assessments through a whole life cycle. Those were the colleagues that I visited on that 18th of March to discuss what to do next. We have a student support unit in academic services, and that manage information, guidance, and advice. We have an assessment program, and that's more the academic side of assessment, really there to make sure the assessment remains innovative, that we're doing assessment that is relevant and fitting to a university that claims to be one of the world leaders in distance education. That's always easily said, but whatever we say, we should have the best assessment possible, and the assessment program helps ensuring that. We have various groups, module result panels. They award the results. Then we have checks at a so-called cluster exam, an award board. There'll be and there is with a pretty long name, the module result award and qualification classification panel. I've been on that for 4 years now. I'm still working to let the abbreviation roll off. We have external examiners and external advisors at all of these stages. And of course, very key players are markers and students. And these are loads of different groups, different perspectives, but the one perspective that we all shared in the face of the corona crisis was that we really wanted to all make it through the next 4 months, and ideally get all our students to walk away with a module result or even a qualification. So what was the challenge here? At the OU, between March and June, there were about 300 plus modules in presentation. There were over 300,000 assessment expected to be submitted electronically, and that's most of them is nothing. It's nothing new. We have the systems already to do it anyway. But we had 30,000 cancelled exams, and then they needed careful thinking. 2,900 paper submissions for all sorts of reasons. Can be people who have special disability requirements, students in secure environments, or some very idiosyncratic modules that have some kind of very special assignments. And of course, that is a challenge in itself, a different one from online working. That's the one, what do you do when you can't go into the building anymore? Anyway, the context in the UK, 16th of March, the announcement, all social contact should cease. 20th, the schools go into lockdown. Then we hear of the cancellation of A-levels and GCSE exams. Those are the exams that mark the students, the 2 stages of a student's school life. And on the 23rd, then the whole country went into lockdown. And the should from the 16th of March turned into a people must stay at home. Sorry, mid-March was the announcement, and then 8th of April it actually was cancelled. So I think it's worth remembering that at that stage, nobody really knew how it would all go, what would happen. We needed to make sure that we could help our students to complete their courses. And with mature students, they have their lives. They have children still stay at home. They might have carer responsibilities. They may be key workers themselves. So, for example, our nursing students who then were really, really busy at the time. Or they may also have been ill. So how could we best support them? And also, how could we make sure we didn't know how many of our staff would be able to work? They had the added pressure of working on from home for many of them for the first time, and what would be our resourcing level to get all the work done, process all the assignments? Would we have 80%, 60%, or maybe 50% capacity compared to normal? We simply didn't know. And in all of that context, then we are a 4 nations university, so we have to fulfill the regulatory and quality standards requirements from the 4 nations. In effect, it's the Office for Students, that's the regulator, and it's the Quality Assurance Agency, which guards the UK Quality Code for Higher Education, and the Scottish and Welsh colleagues or nations. They actually very much follow that guidance. Same applies for Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And here just 5 of the requirements that the regulators put down for us. So first of all, and we wanted to do that anyway, enable students to finish their intended studies. At the same time, make sure that academic standards are maintained. And there was a real push for trying to get students to be able to finish their modules, even if they can't do all the assessment that we had planned. The more we can help them, the better. There was talk about a no detriment policy, but it wasn't really described in any details, and universities across the UK dealt with it in a different way. We agreed to it as a principle in trying to help students don't make the burden of COVID-19 too strong. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. And we must make sound judgments, as if we didn't do that any other time of the year. And we must record our approach. And that also played an important part in how we worked together. So what's the process? Already in end of January, early February, we had our own university emergency management team. And by mid-March, it became clear. They met twice a week and became clear there was too much work. So they needed to split out, and we created a group, the Emergency Management Team Academic Implications Group. And it was chaired by the Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, and initially it had 11 members. I was one of the initial members, and then it grew to be bigger, over 20 by the end of it. And very importantly, it had very wide representation and also more important, had student reps and associate lecturer reps, and those are the people who do the marking, most of the marking, and of course the students studying. So people from comms we had as well. The working mode was very much a brief position paper. What do we need to do? Why do we need to do it? What are the options? We discussed it, and we managed to really do a very, very quick turnaround from discussion to decision and to communication. I.e., you need to make sure that the right piece of information gets to the right students. And you see our sort of group aims: ratify, sense check decisions from task to finish groups, organize follow-up, and document the key decisions and rationale and log these. You see how we're following the regulator here. I think I think what we actually agreed, what we did here, we agreed a very, very speedy, agile university governance process, and we'll have to see what of this might actually be useful in the future, and where do we go back to the ways that we had before. We're all committed to these 4 bullets: deliver results, maintain academic standards to safeguard currency of modules and qualifications, ensure that staff can deliver the pandemic decisions. And that's actually not just that we have enough staff, but also that we look at the well-being of our staff while they're doing it, although that was often a challenge, and support students to succeed and continue with their studies. A regulator asked us to have some principles that we would apply in our work, and I've got you 8 principles here. And it has fairness, and here's what is a principle of no detriment, because helping students to succeed can sometimes, so especially if you take out final assignments, which are often about the whole module, where students often don't perform so well. If you take those out, then you might very, very quickly, and we modeled that, we knew it, might very quickly have some really, really good results. In a way, no longer comparable to what we had previously, and that's really then that collides with maintaining academic standards. So there were some really difficult discussions that we at times had at this emergency academic implications group. We wanted to be pragmatic, and we managed that. We wanted it to be based on current policy, and if we do have to change policy, COVID-19 pandemic policy, if you like, make it as useful as possible, but try not to sort of wholesale rip everything apart. Stay within existing policy and processes. Have capacity in mind, of course, and consistency of communication. Here are just 10 of the decisions that we took. So we turned all remote exams to remote exams. We decided to cancel wherever possible the final assessed task. Submission deadlines for all assignments extended. Also, the marking deadlines were extended. Postponements, we have certain rules about those. We extended those as well. We turned all resets and resubmissions into uncapped resets, special circumstances. We just assumed everybody will be affected one way or the other, and we just then thought about, so how can we account for that? How can we help colleagues in their module result panels to account for it? They could submit special circumstances without evidence, clearly because GPs weren't open or were not ready to write documents for students who couldn't do certain assessment. And on the whole, we gave module result panels and chairs of those panels greater discretionary powers, clearly defined, but there was much more movement possible. In terms of communication, it was an iterative, really action learning process. We didn't really get it right at the beginning. We were very reactive. We it was difficult to get the information on time at a time when people needed it, because we just got onto it too late. And it was also very, very tricky to get the right message to the right stakeholder. And a blanket, if you have different kinds of courses, when some modules are cancelled, others have a remote exam, you cannot just send one message out. You need to tailor it. And we got better at that. And in the end, we had like those points where people could just, it's the COVID-19 update center, and they could go there. Students had their own, associate lecturer staff had their own. I think by now we've worked it out. We needed to do the same within the faculties. We ran some extra assessment briefings, especially for the June conflations, where we had over 100. I mean, I'll get to that, but we had so many results and so many people were involved in it. It's our biggest period, where I think on the whole, I ran most of these briefings, and we had altogether now 6 of these briefings, about 800-900 members of staff who joined them. We have to report to our regulators, and we've done that regularly. We have to report our internal governance structure, and in order to maintain academic quality standards. That's where we did all the communication. Impact. So in June, modules that were sort of ratified on 17th of July and 31st of July, was over 100, and actually it was more than 103,000 students. We looked at what's the impact of all the different steps that we took, the statistical adjustments, the standardization, and we actually found, on the whole, module result panels did also their consideration. They took special circs into account. And overall, the changes were acceptable, so we're quite confident and can say that we kept up academic standards, but we did help. So, for example, we had fewer fails, students failing modules, which, given how difficult the situation was for most, I'm glad we got that result. And we got support and praise from external examiners and assessors for across the board, really, for how we handled the pandemic. There was also strong support from staff and students, although there's also dissent. Some people were clearly not happy with their results, or that they couldn't do their final assessed task, where they really wanted to show what they can do. It's probably inevitable, but on the whole, the reaction was positive. We're still dealing with the decisions that we took between March and June, because we now had a reset period. And we still need to adjust how we do business. It's not business as usual yet, and it probably won't be for the next year for sure. So we've just decided recently that actually this academic year we will not have any other than remote exams too, but now colleagues can actually work and prepare them better. We were lucky that altogether our staffing levels were never lower than 75%, so we could actually do all the business that we needed to do, but at the price where some people had to, and most of us, one way or the other, had to pick up on those missing 25% of staff resource. And I think that's still a little bit in our bones. I've never felt, and I know that from colleagues who've said the same to me, never felt so tired at the beginning of a new academic year. And here we are now. We have to try and be as supportive and positive as we can for our next intake. By the way, I should have said at the beginning, we are about to have some kind of lockdown in the UK again. Whether it's just for like spike periods, 2 weeks at a time, or for something longer, we don't know yet. Anyway, we are working on a lessons plan and a pandemic response plan, and we clearly are better than we have been when we sort of were caught out in March. Now, I just wanted to reflect on four of the pains and the joys. Relentless workloads, everybody would agree with that. We had some difficult decisions to make, and there was a lot of compromise. Negotiation was necessary but with the involvement of students and wider staff categories at those discussion meetings, I'm pretty sure on the whole we took the right decisions. Dealing with technical, my apologies, there's a word missing. There were lots of technical issues that we had to deal with, that we had to develop, and that was time consuming. And this is about systems and how we deliver. They often limit what we might want to do because we just can't do it. And there was the social isolation across all stakeholders. We had it in the meetings, and the meetings were very, very lively, but there was clearly something missing that we normally have. What are the joys? Online working expertise. We have since, and not just in assessment, we've run all sorts of meetings we never thought we could do. Committee meetings with loads of people in there, senior team meetings across the university, workshop style meetings. We're getting better and better at that, and I mean that's something that we need to really keep into whatever the new normal will look like. I think it was great to see that we had this strong purpose to support students, and we could see it played out in the meetings that we had. I think this is sometimes missing when we just all do our work and we follow existing policy and processes. Because there was disruption, we had to really rethink what is core, and that really was a core that we ultimately all agreed on. It also gave we also had clearly we needed to help staff to be able to do work at great speed and often work that they're maybe not used to or in conditions they're not used to. And the offers that we saw from faculties offering to help other units help out where there was a shortage of one way or the other, it was really great to see. And because it's online, we could really help join meetings and be very quick and flexible. We always strive to stay agile or be agile. I'm not sure we have really managed in the past very well, but certainly during this period we did. And overall, there's a real sense of coming together. Coming together really. Personally, I feel there's quite a lot we can be proud of, and we've managed the situation well. We don't know what's going to happen next year, but I think we're much better prepared now to face the coming academic year. And I hope that sense of that we have experienced, that we can keep that and make it work in the future. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thanks so much, Klaus-Dieter. Really, you can hear from your story the challenges that you have faced, and I'm quite sure most of the people who are signed up for the session share the same experience. But really, your story is really inspiring. I really liked it that you the challenges that you have taken up with your colleagues. There's so much inspiration. Let's see how people respond to this presentation. Klaus-Dieter, any questions or remarks? You can also share your own or similar experiences in the chat, of course.
Okay, I can't see the chat now. Can I just close my? Should I do that? Close?
Yes, sure.
Oh,
Thank
no.
you.
Okay.
No problem. Okay, in the meantime, I think Bo will start with a new presentation, the next one. You can still ask questions or have comments to Klaus-Dieter's presentation in the chat, and then well, there was one question there, Klaus. What e-proctoring system do you use now that all your exams are online, and are you happy with it?
So this is a big piece of discussion. We have this is not e-proctoring. We have ways of verifying student work, and we do that through the tutors who see student work all through the year. They have to. There's a process of where they have to, as best as they can, tell whether a student it's their own work or not. We also use copycat and turn it in as per standard. We have looked in the past at e-proctoring, and it's a really it's not an easy decision, because first of all, there is no system that can totally eliminate it, and some people find it very intrusive to have like if you use a camera and it goes into your room. And we have teamed up with we're working at the moment. We're in the process of implementing a new software that will help us to manage the whole submission process. And they have a couple of e-proctoring solutions that are less intrusive that we will try out over the next year for sure. And at the same time, we'll actually want to work on a clear policy of what we do for remote exams and what needs to be done. This has all been very ad hoc, and the best we could do in the moment. This coming year will be one where we now prepare properly for the next big number of exams coming in June 2021.
Thanks again. Then we go to our next speaker, is Erato from the Open University of Cyprus, originally our host of a face-to-face meeting. So please, Erato, welcome here in the online session. The floor is yours.
Hi, and welcome to all of you, and thank you for this invitation. As George has already said, we were supposed to host the second staff support event in Cyprus. Due to COVID, we had to cancel it, but you will have the pleasure to come to Cyprus, in sunny Cyprus, next year, hopefully, unless something else doesn't happen. So I don't know if we can upload my presentation. I see the presentation will work. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so my name is Erato, and I am the responsible officer of the International Relations, Development and Communications at the Open University of Cyprus, and we're going to talk to you about the communication strategies that we used during the COVID-19 outbreak. So COVID-19 changed everything, our lives, our social connections, our work environments, our financial prospects, our studies. In our case, we see it, however, as valuable lessons learned to help to share and to help us get through any future crisis. And this is where EADTU and networks like EADTU come to place, because they give us this floor to share experiences, lessons, best practices we have achieved throughout these times. So COVID-19 may have changed everything, but as in your case, I guess, it didn't disrupt the education of students in open and distance universities, like the Open University of Cyprus, which continue to operate smoothly at all levels, at education, research, administration, social contribution, and events continue to run smoothly during the lockout. So we had our virtual classes, we shifted all our events online, and we even conducted, as many of you, our final examinations totally online using exclusively electronic means. Respecting, of course, the GDPR rules, we ensured that our students' IDs were checked through cameras, and we safeguarded online invigilation of the examinations. So our goal during this lockdown, let's say, was to reposition our university, building on our reputation as the country's only university dedicated to open and distance education. So we actually saw COVID as an opportunity to market ourselves to the general public that maybe didn't know the Open University of Cyprus or wasn't aware of the benefits of e-learning. Thus, our corporate ID, we called out on the following: that we're a public university, because in Cyprus and Greece, which is our main audiences, this matters. The fact that we're the only university in Cyprus dedicated to distance education. Thus, we have many years of experience and know-how on how to implement distance education. And moreover, the fact that we give recognized degree titles in the EU. Thus, we made sure that all our communication messages highlighted those competitive advantage and our product and service differentiation. We saw in Cyprus that we have like 8 universities now, and many of them shifted online. We saw a lot of private universities offering e-learning courses, but we highlighted the fact that we are the only university exclusively focused on this distance education methodology. Thus, we are the ones that have the know-how on how to do this. So in terms of our effective communication with our students, at the beginning of the lockdown, actually all our communications were dedicated to the emergency. We had to inform our students how the pandemic would not affect their studies, how they will continue their online lessons, and how their administrative services of the university would provide support with electronic means. Because as in the case of WOC, everybody was conducting his her work online. The second thing was to provide additional support to our students and staff. So our university's counseling office scheduled online workshops and sessions that were aiming to help students and the general public to cope with the stress and anxiety related to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the lockdown, our university actually had an open enrollment application period for the 2020-2021 academic year. So because of the outbreak, we saw that a lot of our prospective students doubted actually their willingness or decision to pursue higher education in the near future, because of the uncertainty, of course. And their needs were shifting as a result of COVID, since they were looking for universities that could address their concerns in terms of safety, on how to study online without any breaches of their privacy and stuff like that. So our goal in regards to effective communication was to engage with prospective students and, because of the pandemic, to retain their interest during those uncertain times. We saw, and I guess it's the thing for all universities, that our traditional marketing tools, for example, participation in educational fairs, open days, billboards, video walls in malls, the things that we used in the past were no longer as effective or were not even possible, were not feasible, because all events were canceled. We couldn't have an open day at the university, so everything has to change. Thus, we had the need to look for alternative tools, and we had to change our communication and marketing strategies, leveraging resources we already had, or even developing new resources. So what we did in terms of our communication tools, actually from the right beginning, we shifted to 100% online communication with our students and prospective students. So we used email, we used instant messaging, and even more social media to communicate directly with them. I mean, everybody was on Facebook Messenger answering our students' concerns, issues, questions that they may have. We also used our website both as a unified source of information, but also as a marketing tool to communicate effectively the benefits of distance education and our university's competitive advantages. The tools that we traditionally used to market our universities were no longer obsolete. So we shifted our marketing budget to 100% digital campaigns. So we reallocated our budget to 100% online advertising to sustain organic growth of our website and social media. We used social media campaigns and content marketing. So we boosted Google Ads, Facebook campaigns. We invested in animated videos promoted on our website and social media to inform prospective students about the core advantages of the Open University of Cyprus. We also used a lot of radio spots, interviews, and online news portals to advertise our programs of study. Moreover, we boosted our video content. So we recorded all the scientific and cultural events that took place online. we organized virtual open days, which were recorded for offline viewing, and we prepared video presentations of all our programs of study. And of course, we used our social media, such as YouTube, to market and promote those video content. During the lockdown, we also invested more in the promotion of human stories, with testimonials of our students and alumni with different personas. People who shared their experiences with online education and how our university and our programs met their educational, professional aspirations, as well as their need for flexible learning. And we considered testimonials that talked not only about the outcome, for example, how they graduated or how they used their degree to secure, let's say, a promotion or to find work. But we also highlighted how students felt supported by the Open University of Cyprus, how our programs met their needs for flexibility, safety of studying from their own home, how a sense of personal satisfaction can be achieved during this online studies journey. And of course, given that everybody was actually online during the lockdown on a computer screen or a mobile device, we created virtual experiences and we moved all our events online to increase interactivity and engagement with both the students, prospective students, and the general public. So as I said before, we organized virtual open days. We used YouTube Live and Facebook Live. The interactive online events also involved both our faculty and staff, so that prospective students could better understand the programs and what are the options that were available to them. We also conducted online live streaming presentations of our programs, and all scientific talks were conducted online and were open to all. And we saw very large numbers of participants that we didn't have in the past. For example, we had public talks from professors of the university, from tutors, or we had talks not only on scientific issues, but also on matters that concern COVID. And we saw a very increased participation, not only from inside the university, from our students, but also from the general public. We also, as I told you before, we had online open workshops and sessions organized by our counseling office on topics related to coronavirus, on stress and anxiety management. And those workshops were also very useful for our staff as well, that as Eva told you before, because they worked from home, they had this increased burden of working from home and having to deal with all this crisis. And we had dedicated series of webinars and video podcasts on issues that related to COVID-19. Moreover, we saw this opportunity to use more effectively online tools to promote science communication, to inform and raise awareness on e-learning scientific related topics. For example, we promoted heavily our university's contribution to the implementation of e-learning in schools in Cyprus, our professors' publications on educational technology, on how e-learning can benefit citizens. And this was the goal, to engage audience with e-learning and its benefits. And last but not least, we increased public interventions in traditional and new media on the benefits of online learning, how our university responded effectively to the outbreak. For example, we had a series of interviews on how we successfully carried out the final examinations 100% online with electronic means. For us, it was also important to find the right balance between connecting with prospective students regularly to retain their engagement, but resisting the temptation to bombard them daily with information. So for this reason, we sought the right balance and timing in communicating effectively with them. We scheduled our online events in a timely manner. We didn't have like various events organized every week. Moreover, to help smooth increased anxiety and to create trust, we asked our people, academics and administrative staff, to respond to all emails, all telephone calls within 24, the latest 48 hours, and to use social media to communicate more directly and speedy with everybody that had an interest on the Open University of Cyprus. And it was also important to take care of the tone of our communication. So the tone of our communication with prospective students and the actions we took during those difficult times could have a huge impact on the way they perceived our university. So we tailored our messages to respond to their needs. We included messages about the flexible lifelong learning opportunities and how they could study safely from their own home. We also brought our rector and professors online to help build trust. Thus, we scheduled more online sessions with them to directly communicate with our students and prospective students. And then as far as our key messages are concerned, we promoted the following: that distance education is no longer a preference, but is actually a necessity. That distance education allows people to fit their studies around personal, life, or professional commitments. That people during these times can use the flexibility offered by open and distance education universities, like our university, to start with standalone e-learning courses, and when they see fit and possible, to continue later to full degree. And in line of the financial crisis brought by the pandemic, our key messages also included the types of financial support we provided to our students, because that was very important for them as well. The scholarships that we offer, or the flexibility to schedule their tuition fees payments in regular time intervals. Lastly, our marketing messages highlighted information which concerned all our students, let's say, personas. And those we have identified as the following: people who are considered job ladder climbers, people who want a degree to seek promotion, for example, people that we consider to be career switchers, people who want a different degree to change their careers, unfinished students, in the sense of people who left higher education and are now looking for e-learning to return to higher education, and lifelong learning students, which are the ones that seek lifelong learning, of course. And although the makeup of our adult learners are not only those 4 personas alone, the insights that we draw from these personas inform our marketing strategies. To sum up, the COVID-19 pandemic for us was an opportunity that we need to take advantage of. So the coronavirus indeed transformed our lives. Higher education is likely to change significantly, but e-learning is not new. And it's not new for our universities, open and distance universities. It is our standard practice. And maybe new audiences will emerge. Our students will have different and diverse needs. Our financial models are likely to change. We see that a lot of students now face financial constraints, financial problems. Thus, this will be felt by our universities as well. And our communication and marketing strategies need to be constantly updated as we monitor current trends and anticipate the future. So for us, it's very important to focus on the things that we can control and to work together in the line of EDTU to ignite great change in distance education. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks so much, Erato. Yeah, we would have loved to have heard this on location, but the message was still very clear also here in this online session.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to? Yeah, indeed, you're really an example of turning a problem into a chance. Yeah. Okay, so in the meantime, we go to the final session, final presentation, and please keep your questions coming in the chat. The final presentations is taken care of by Angeles from UNED under the title "No One Left Behind: UNED Strategies to Cope with COVID Challenges." Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, George, and everyone. Well, we are three, in fact. I mean, there are other two colleagues that are going to present also. So I think you will give them, I guess, the possibility of being presenting with camera and video, as I said to Bo.
Yeah, sure. I think Bo will make that possible technically.
Yes. Can you hear me? I just make you all presenter. Jose and Lanos. I see you already, Lanos.
Janos,
Nice
yeah.
to hear you. Jose, you are a presenter as well. You can turn on your microphone and camera by going with your mouse over the I see. You already see it. Perfect. Nice to have you here.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Although I'm going to be the thread of the presentation, so I'm going to give the floor to them when they have to talk. But I'm going to start just straight because we have no much time left. And well, I want to thank you for to all of you for being here until the end and for these interesting presentations. I think we share a lot of things, a lot of common things during all these past months. So these are the three of us. We are going to talk on behalf of the Vice Directorate of Digitalization and Innovation in UNED, and I'm going to present them afterwards. So I'm going to present myself first. My name is Ángeles Sánchez Olvera Paniagua, and I'm the Director of the Institute of Distance Education in UNED and the Chair of the Student Support Field in the Empower Project. So I'm not going in detail in this. It's just some features of UNED, but I'm going to stress some things like we have 40 years of experience in distance education. I mean, we are the national distance education university in our country, the largest university, in fact, with more than 200,000 students each year. So we are a mega university. Our methodology is online, mainly online, but we have, of course, a face-to-face support in our network of local centers, more than 62 centers in the country, and 12 abroad with weekly based face-to-face tutoring. So this is on a voluntary basis. So our main core of the courses are online. So we have a special attention to diversity, and we have the seal of quality in e-learning of the ADTU. So in 2019, we were working in the rectorate and, of course, in our vice rectorate in the UNED plan for digital transformation, which is transversal axis. And our project in the vice rectorate is named ED3, is inclusive and open education with the characteristics of the 3D, digital at distance and database. And we were fully working on that. But 2020 arrived, a very strange year we are all living, and the corona crisis came with this unprecedented global crisis we are all sharing, which is something very special because maybe it is the first time in our lives that we all, our human beings, are living the same thing at the same time. So I think this is something very important. So we went all locked down on the 14th of March in our country completely, and all our lives went online, as all of you have experienced and talked about. I mean, our works, our private life, our education, anything went online, and we were used to be like we are now, always communicating through a screen. I'm going to stress this special moment every day in our daily evening opening of our balconies to express our gratitude to our sanitary staffs and all the essential services staff. That was this special and emotional moment in which we get in contact again with real people. I mean, with people outside in our neighborhoods. But really, as we know, it was the start of a nightmare for traditional campus the traditional campus of universities that have to move very quickly towards online learning, teaching and learning, most of the times without being prepared for all this transition. As we have seen, and all our universities were somehow prepared. I mean, we are a distance education university, and in the case of UNED in March 2020, UNED semester was underway online as usual. It was our normal courses online. Our students were there in the virtual campuses. So In principle, it shouldn't have been a problem in the beginning. However, we have to face some main challenges, such as all of you facing COVID pandemic, and we are going to just summarize the main ones. The first, it was an outward challenge. I mean, just like 2-3 days before the lockdown, the Ministry of Universities called our rector and said, well, please, we need your help and the help of the WOC to develop jointly some guidelines, some support to the rest of the universities. So we work in this website that was named Conectados, Connected, to bring our experience to the rest of the universities to support them in this very, very quick transition to online teaching. So that was how the website looked like. And we developed in a very short period of time things about methodology, contents, open contents from 2 universities, technology that could support this transition. And also I want to stress the contribution of the Applied Psychology Service of the Faculty of Psychology of my university, with psychological support in terms of weekly webinars and also online interventions, and by phone also, to give people, not only academics or students, also anyone that needed some psychological help. In numbers, you can see the numbers here, and also the distribution between countries that connected to the website during that days. But now we want to introduce what were our main inner challenges, the ones we had to cope with. And so we have summarized 4, and in fact are all the ones that we have been talking about this afternoon here. First, our face-to-face tutoring system. Secondly, our final compulsory face-to-face exams in UNED. Third, how to give support and training for the new scenarios. And fourth, the communication. So that was the March-July marathon in UNED with these sentences we have named our own presentation: no one left behind, or this slogan we say that we are UNED, somos UNED. So facing these challenges, we had to develop very quickly organizational strategies, technological developments, staff support, student support actions, and a communication strategy. I mean, very similar to those things we have heard today in this event. First, our tutoring system is online and face-to-face in the local centers. But what it is true is, that 80% of UNED tutoring sessions, synchronous tutoring sessions, take place in a local center. I mean, daily, weekly. About 2,000 face-to-face weekly tutorials take place all around the country. And also they are broadcast to other centers, but they are there, I mean, tutors and students. So the problem was that within days, all the face-to-face tutoring sessions were moved to our web conference system. Well, we had already a web conference system, which is AVIP from Inteca. So we could develop, we could offer synchronous online tutoring. And in fact, students really connect very much, and perhaps more, because they were all at home, so they were all connected to their tutoring. But we had to cope with some obvious problem. There were peaks of more than 260,000 weekly connections to the platform, and an increase of course, of 350% of the service that require the support of external computational services, because we couldn't cope with all that only with all services. So we needed external support for that, but we did it. And the second main and great, really, it has been our headache. It was our final system of exams, because we had a compulsory final exam in our degree. So students have to go to their local centers. We had 3 convocations during the year: February and May, and then an extraordinary in September. And about 200,000 exams take place in the local centers in June, normally. That is usual. So this is a very a strict and it is a complex organization that is controlled by our virtual exam management system that I'm not going to explain here now. But the thing is, we wanted to replicate this structure that in the sense that each exam is held at the same time, the same day, in everywhere. So we wanted to replicate this system, but online. So action one was, on the one hand, to reinforce our continuous assessment in our own platform, in our learning management system. So to say the academic staff, whether they wanted to reinforce the normal assessments with other new tasks, new works for the students. And secondly, with these reinforcements, we need to develop an institutional calendar for more than 1,000 subjects in order to prevent that the platform could collapse, because many people were submitting assignments or doing thousands of tests at once. So we had to make first this calendar just to reinforce something that for us was really very important to improve our continuous assessment. But the second thing, well, and that implies, as you can see, more than 2,000 online tasks and all the assignments submitted that you can see here. And now I'm going to give the floor to José Luis Aznarte, that he is the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Intelligent Data Management, to explain the Action 2, which is one of the most important things we have been doing during these past months. José Luis, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Angeles. Yes, as Angeles was just saying, exams in UNED are face-to-face, are taken in the network of associate centers throughout the country and in some other countries as well. And so the change from that model to a online-based model was very difficult to conceive at first. So one alternative, one obvious alternative was get the phone and call a company amongst the several companies that are doing these kind of things, and ask them to sell us a system to perform exams remotely. But we decided to go on a different path, and we decided to create the system at home. And this was somehow a crazy bet, but we did it, and we managed to do it properly. So luckily, we have some technological centers which are used to develop applications for, amongst other things, the exams, where normally the exams are scanned and sent at the same time that the student ends finishing it when they're done in the centers. So there was some software already prepared, but there was nothing as what we were involved in preparing later. What we did was we tried to replicate online what we have when we do exams on the halls, on the centers. So the idea was to make exams as similar as possible to that old way of doing exams. And so the main challenges were, of course, technical, that is allowing or preparing a system that would resist so many people doing exams at the same time. They were also educational in the sense that we needed to provide a way for teachers to prepare their exams and to include them in the system, and means for the students to be able to do the exams. I mean, I'm not saying anything that the rest of the presentators didn't approach in some way or another, but yeah, I will try to show what were our decisions and what were our strengths and our weaknesses. So this is the site of UNED, where you could see a link to this virtual hall of exam, Aula Virtual de Examen, which was the software we developed. Can we can I control? Oh yeah, I think I can control the slides. Okay, so we developed an exam, virtual exam management system where we had an exam editor for the teachers to prepare their exams. We also had automatic correction of the tests. We also had an online correction module, and we also had some anti-plagiarism tools. And well, here it says facial recognition, but that wasn't implemented in the end, as I will mention now in a bit. So normally in UNED we have three type of exams. We have test type exams with different alternatives where you just mark A, B, C, or D. We also have open questions, and we also have mixed exams. It's important to note that once you start thinking about the exams in an institution like UNED, you have to acknowledge that it's very hard to take into account all the diversity and the variability of thousands of subject matters and thousands of professors designing exams the way they like. So that was one of the main issues, to how to give response to all the different needs of the different subjects and so on. So, for example, there were exams where it was needed to include a picture in the questions. Of course, this is in principle is very simple, but it needs to be implemented, and it needs to be written down as code, tested, and deployed. These during the April, where we all were locked down at home, was really something that wasn't so easy. And another example needed to have math language for the questions, and we didn't have it for the answers because it would be too difficult too demanding in terms of time to the students learn a different way of writing math. So what we did after the petition of the engineering school was to add a different type of question where you could upload a picture where you can make your development, mathematical development, and so on. So since the exams at UNED are synchronous, normally we need to control that everyone enters the room or the virtual room at the same time, and we need to control when the exam ends, and we need to have a very clear idea of the schedule of the whole week of exams, and we need to know how many students are expected on each session, and we need to prepare the computer infrastructure to give service to that, of course. Okay, just taking. Yeah. So one of the main questions that the teachers started to ask when we announced that we were developing this kind of system, they were very worried about the safety and the cleanness of the exams. And this is really a slippery slope, because changing your exams from face-to-face to virtual without notice, without having this as a prior precondition when the people started studying in your institution, it's tricky, because you should not change the rules of the game in the middle of the term, right? But we also needed to adapt. So we spent some time, and we still do, reflecting on how to ensure that the exams are fair in terms of cleanness, and how to do that at the same time not affecting the experience of the students in a way that would be bad for them, right? I was asking in the forum about proctoring solutions, and we reflected about those solutions, and we decided that there were some of them that were really risky, right? We had invasive technologies, and we cannot ask our students to let us in their houses, because even though some of them would be happy to do that, some others would agree to do that, but wouldn't be very happy, and probably wouldn't have the conditions to invite their teachers into their house. So we try to balance security and the risk of fraud, defined as the risk of people not being who they say they are, and people using means outside the allowed means to do the exams, right? So some of the decisions that we took to avoid these situations were randomization of the questions and the answers. That is, every student gets a personalized exam, which is not like the exam of any of their colleagues or students. And we did that by asking the teachers to prepare extensive sets of questions that were randomly selected. We also made restrictions on copy paste from and to the system, and we took pictures of the system of the students during the test. These pictures were not automatically analyzed. There was no facial recognition, but these pictures were attached to the exam, so the teacher can see what's going on at some random points of the exam. Of course, this is not a proctoring solution, but it's also, as I say, it's a compromise between affecting the way that the exam takes place and trying to avoid fraud in the exam. So we also asked the students to sign a declaration of authorship and non-use of fraudulent means, which has some legal implications. And we also put in place a tool that we had almost finished before COVID, which is Verificatio, which is an anti-plagiarism resource which compares texts and tells you if about the originality of the answers. And we also set up the possibility that the teachers could call or fix an interview with the students in order to confirm that the exam was properly made by them. So, but the most important means that we thought that was the way to avoid fraud was changing the way that we do exams, changing from a memoristic framework where you're supposed to learn, memorize things, to a more significant way of asking, where we would evaluate if the students really know what they should know, right? This is also, let's say, displacing or placing the burden on the teachers instead of the students. This is arguably a good way of tackling this problem, but yeah, this is what we came with. We can demand more from our teachers, but it's arguable if we can demand more of our students. So and the teachers acted with a big generosity, and they I have to say that the response was really great. Yeah, the recommendations that we end up having is that we made to the teachers was to use an extensive question bank, allow the use of materials to make all exams should be open book exams, and yeah, designing of the exams in a more significant way. The timing of the exams was also very tight, which is arguably something that we demand to the students as well. So in the end, in June, we we end up making 188,000 exams. In September, 144,000 exams. And they mostly went very good. We had some 1% of issues, people that wrote saying that they had problems with hardware or they misunderstood the process. There was some confusion because of the randomization of the questions and answers. People noted that they had replied A, but then A was in the third position, and that this generated some confusion. And we also could offer this tool already to some other institutions. For example, Justice Ministry used this same tool for their exams in June. So yeah, this is a first shot, a shot in the dark mostly, because we had to improvise and we came up with this. But we think there is a lot of room for improvement, and that this tool can be easily established as a standard if and only if lockdowns come again in the future. Let's hope that this doesn't happen. And I think we all in UNED, we all want to come back to the face-to-face exams, which of course have less, they're more tested procedure, and we trust them much more than this alternative. So I give the floor back to Angeles or Janos.
I come back now. So thank you very much, Jose Luis. I think this is, as you say, just a very brief picture of what happened and what has been developed. But I think that ABEX will have more use than not only for final exam, but for all other uses we can have in the university. So the third challenge was to give support to all the academic staff and, of course, to the students about the uses of all this and all the information. So we developed a specific website with all the information that was ongoing. I mean, there was like 4 or 5 final manuals of the application, and we were constantly updating things. And one of the things we were involved, as in my case, was in the training of teachers, or the use of the different options of assessment, and of course of ABEX, of the application, through guides and video tutorials with all the options that were there. And we opened an interactive online community to keep in contact constantly with the academic staff, with weekly webinars also, and forums and so on, just to to make them feel that they were always supported, and there was always an answer to any doubt or question. Now I'm going to give the floor to Janos Tovar-Rabat. She's the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Digital Contents Production, to tell us how also this unit worked and gave support to our academic staff. Janos.
Thank you, Angeles. Well, as we have seen before, teachers need help to adapt their exams into this new platform, ABEX. So for this, UNED have a unit that gives us support and advice to our teachers in the creation of digital content. This unit is digital content development. This unit has 3 main objectives. The first one is the preparation and design of educational materials, from methodological guidelines to the development of application and multimedia components for editing and layout digital content and update of components of previous years. On the other hand, they developed a virtual experience and experimental laboratory for interactive practice as support of the teaching. And finally, they offer the technical support to follow up and attention to all the entities that conform UNED. Okay. So apart from these 3 main objectives, they also have the support of graphic designers that help us to the creation of attractive interface and adaptive and appealing educational materials. So what we do during the COVID-19 crisis, in order to speed up the contact with this unit and offer a personalized response, we have initiated a protocol to facilitate teachers' access to the unit's services. First, a form has been created to receive a first draft of the request. When the request is received, it's classified and referred to the specialized person. This advisor contacts the lecturers to resolve the incident by mail, by conference, or by telephone. There have been more than 40 interventions and more than 300 hours of works. Each incident lasts at least 1 hour, but there are some of these interventions that last at least 80 hours. We must take into account then some numbers of the production capacity of digital materials in a university like UNED. As you can see, we have more than 300 more courses. We have more than 40,000 videos and 22,000 audios, and more than 26 documents. And during the last year, there were more than 200,000 recorded lessons. So, to further assist lecturers in the adaptation and preparation of our teaching materials, a project has been started to develop an educational materials manager. This project has 6 different objectives. The first one is allow our lecturers generate in an autonomic way new contents. These tools must be facilitate an environment where any member of the unit can generate their content, learning objects, guides, electronic tools, and so on. It must be accessible by internet, simple and friendly interface with a minimum learning curve, without the need of technical knowledge. The second objective, it must be scalable according to the demand. It must be integrated into all the resources of the unit, including educational and research content management and a pooling of content generation. It must allow that we can reuse already existing contents in the university, and must allow us to support preserving its properties and metadata not only related to accessibility, but following the main standards available: EPUB, SCORE, LTL, Word, PDF, and so on. The development of this application is divided in three main modules. A model for importing materials, guided by wizards to acquire new materials available in our repositories, and external content for other reputable sources. A content manager that allows us to carry out an educational design, focuses on the user, guaranteeing accessibility, managing the metadata of the materials, and allowing the use of collaborative tools. And finally, a model for exporting material from the main university repositories, as well as the main educational standard for the deployment on educational platforms, libraries, and social networks.
Okay, so let's go to the last part of our presentation, and that was well, our main focus, our main center, our students. So that was all the lines that were developed to support our students for 2020 assessment in this program that was named 100% UNED. I mean, no one left behind. That was our main objective, because we have a great heterogeneity of students. So UNED 100% led students that had some difficulties for some reason to apply to some support measures, some different things that go into the AVEX application to take their exams. So these are some main figures. We had like for nearly 5,000 applications asking for some kind of support because they were disabled, because they didn't have speakers or microphone or internet connection or computer, or something really relevant, that because they have been affected by the coronavirus, or they were essential services workers, such as our sanitary. So they were different kinds of measures developed for all these students. In terms of communication, very briefly, because Cyprus gave us an excellent presentation of the communication strategy. In our case also, we had to develop the communication and support strategy through our website, email, social networks, to keep everyone informed and in touch, and also support services for administrative and technological issues when someone had any kind of problem. And we developed also this kind of social connection through our short videos made by teachers, students, people in the local centers, administrative staff, and so on, explaining what we were doing at home during these days, just trying to feel all of us connected. So months of intense collaborative works of all parties involved. we learned very much to how to work online synchronously with thousands of daily teams working meetings of those units involved in the different actions. And I think it has been a great experience of collective intelligence. And as it was said before, why we don't do this normally, we have to continue working on this direction in the future. So what's next? I guess, as has been said, and it's been saying everywhere, COVID-19, such as other sad things that have happened in humanity, are great disruptors and accelerators of changes in many areas, and of course in education. We were discussing this past year and in 2018 about the future of universities, a digital university. So now it's here. I mean, we have moved all digital, and we have to continue improving, such as Harvard or Stanford is saying that this has been a great opportunity to move towards a global education experience, to increase the experience of the students. So everyone now is thinking about that. This has been like opening the door to the new possibilities. In terms of UNED, very briefly, just we want to continue with this idea with our project of taking advantage, as you can have heard about in our presentation of being a massive university with thousands of students, and taking advantage of the data. So artificial intelligence can better support learning and teaching processes. So our main goal is developing adaptive and personalized learning systems, but we cannot talk today. This can be the topic for other event of the ADTU in the future. And thank you very much for your attention and for being here just until this hour. Thank you very much.
Thanks, all of you, for your combined presentation. It was really a comprehensive approach. I guess there was a lot more information to be told, but we were restricted in time, as you could see. Other very short and immediate question or remark? Yeah, we collect all slides and on SlideShare, and also the recording will be shared with you for all of you who have registered to this event. In the meantime, also check out the YAML community of support staff community, in which we will also announce all this. Thanks again, Angeles, José, and Lanos for your presentation, and I want to thank all the presenters of this afternoon. It was really rich information about handling the COVID crisis, which I think the recording will be well visited also after this event. We will promote this further. I believe, Bo, there was a final slide as well for another announcement. Yes, upcoming is the Short Learning Programs webinar week, and the week of the 13th and 15th of October. You can check that out also on our Empower website or ED2 website. And yeah, there's the link. And you can register for that via Eventbrite as well. I want to thank all the speakers of this afternoon for all the information, and also for all the attendees, and hope to see you soon again for another event then online.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for being here, presenting and attending.